subcommittee will come to order. Good morning, and this is the subcommittee's fourth hearing on House Joint Resolution number 1, which of course is the Equal Rights Amendment. And the focus of today's hearing will be women in the military. The primary purpose of the hearing is to provide the subcommittee with a closer look at the role women have played in the military and how that role is changing. To help us in this effort, we have three witnesses who have examined the military and the role of military women as carefully and thoroughly as anyone outside the military establishment. The witnesses are Carolyn B. Kraft and Jean Atkins of the Women's Equity Action League and Dr. Mady Wexler Siegel of the University of Maryland. The Women's Equity Action League is an organization familiar to most of us. For the past several years, it has maintained an ongoing Women in the Military project and is therefore one of the single largest repositories of information about this issue outside of the Department of Defense itself. Dr. Siegel is Associate Professor of Sociology at the University of Maryland. She is also Guest Scientist, Department of Military Psychiatry, Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. She has written extensively on military issues, including several articles on women and their change in roles. We welcome you, and before you may proceed, I yield to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Sensenbrenner.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman from Colorado.
I will do likewise. Thank you.
You may proceed, and it's nice to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Carolyn B. Kraft, and I am Director of the National Information Center on Women in the Military, a project of the Women's Equity Action League. With me today, as you mentioned, are Jean Atkins, Staff Attorney for the Women's Equity Action League, and a project associate of the Information Center, and Dr. Mady Wexler Siegel, Associate Professor of Sociology at the University of Maryland. We are here today to discuss the current status of American women with respect to the United States military and the impact of the Equal Rights Amendment on that status. I am very pleased that the subcommittee has chosen to highlight the issue of women's rights and the military during these Equal Rights Amendment hearings. The last 10 years of debate about equal rights for women has sadly been lacking in factual information about the realities of women's relationship to national defense, resulting in the widespread misconception that rejection of the Equal Rights Amendment will somehow protect American women from war. If our panel makes no other point to the subcommittee today, it is our hope that we establish that American women have been and will again be relied on to risk their lives in defense of their country. The central issue before this Congress with respect to the Equal Rights Amendment is not whether the ERA will subject women to dangerous military service, but whether the federal government will be required to deal fairly with the women who make these sacrifices. The military is one area of federal law where explicit sex discrimination still exists. Currently, federal statutes restrict the manner in which the secretaries of the Air Force and the Navy can assign women, and all the services, with the exception of the Coast Guard, further restrict the roles women can play. As a result, entry to every service branch, opportunities to be promoted, education, and training are all routinely denied to women solely and exclusively on the basis of gender. These discriminatory policies have created the illusion that wars are fought exclusively by men as the protectors of women. ERA opponents argue that these exclusions must be maintained as barriers between the proper role of women and the supposed all-male world of combat. While indeed the barriers are real, the notion that they serve to protect women from combat has always been an illusion. Women have served in every combat theater of every American war. They have died, been wounded, and have been prisoners of war. Today, the skills and capabilities provided by women are so integral to the efficient operation of all branches of the armed services that, in a national emergency, it appears that conscription of women is inevitable. In fact, plans for a draft of both men and women with medical skills are already being made. The effect of the so-called combat exclusions is to control women's participation in the military while still allowing Congress and the service branches enough flexibility to assure that women will be available when their skills are required. Behind every combat exclusion lies an exception: except nurses when they are needed, except in times of real national emergency, except when enough qualified women are not enough qualified men are not available. The existence of these exclusionary laws and policies does not then protect women from combat. The real result is the creation of artificial barriers to promotion and to policy-making roles. Women pay an enormous price for the maintenance of these laws and policies and the social and societal myths that underlie and are reinforced by them. This price comes as both an economic penalty and as a reduction in the quality of their citizenship rights. The economic price is clear. The military is, quite simply, the largest employer and educator in the nation. Policies which limit the proportion of women who can enter the services deny women opportunities for job training and education in high-demand technical and craft skills, not on the basis of their capability, but because of their sex. Exclusion from the benefits of military service also means lost opportunities for college scholarships, veterans' education benefits, veterans' preference in government employment, veterans' insurance and loan programs, and limited access to the revolving door of the military-industrial connection, where the private sector pays well for defense-related skills of former service members. Recent research has verified a direct correlation between the economic status of women and military service. The Texas Population Research Center has just released data showing that among employed women of all races, those who serve in the armed forces are almost twice as likely to earn salaries of $300 per week or better than those women who have not. This conclusion was reached by comparing only women with similar education levels, and so does not even reflect the wider opportunities for training and education available to service members. The limitation on women's participation in the military thus provide an excellent example of discriminatory federal policies, which help to create the earnings gap between men and women, and thus contribute to the feminization of poverty. The second price women pay for continuing discrimination in national defense policy is a profound effect on their status as citizens. The duty to serve in a national emergency is regarded as the most basic responsibility of citizenship, and in fact is related to the citizen's right to participate in the decision-making of government. Women recognize they cannot expect equality of treatment in other public spheres as a right of citizenship if any of the obligations of citizenship are waived.